Results from a scientific modeling study funded by the Colorado government and commissioned by then Governor John Hickenlooper were released this week. The study found that short-term exposure up to 2,000 feet away from oil and gas drilling sites puts humans at risk for health problems like nausea and headaches. Colorado's Oil and Gas Commission responded by saying it will take the information into consideration when deciding on approving permits. David, what is the appropriate weight given to a study like this, the sources, where it came from?
Well, as you said, it's a modeling study. As the executive summary explains, in their words, it is about hypothetical people, hypothetical facilities, and hypothetical locations. And then these hypothetical folks are exposed to worst case scenarios, which, as the study says, might happen only rarely. And then in this hypothetical dystopia we have, the study predicts that air quality guidelines would be exceeded in, quote, a relatively small number of oil and gas development scenarios. And those exceedances would not lead to any long-term health problems. So that's what the study actually says. I can guarantee you it's going to be massively misrepresented by the anti-science folks to try to convince people that if you live 1,900 feet away from an oil and gas facility, you're being poisoned all the time, which is the opposite of what the study found. The Colorado Oil and Gas Agency, or Commission, is doing the right thing by starting to do actual air monitoring. And that's what's much more relevant, is real data about real-world air quality conditions.
Melanie, this seems that whether it's modeling or where the study came from, when you see headlines like that, it's only going to inflame already a hot issue in Colorado. Do you see greater ramifications as we head towards 2020?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think that the study, I think raises a lot of questions and calls out for more research. It seems like, this is an area where the technology is advancing and how we can monitor air. 9 Denver schools this year just got brand new air monitors, and they have these like big TV screens in the schools that show different colors. Like green is it's good and you can go out to recess and be fine, and then there's like the worst is purple, that like please stay inside. A lot of them are up in the Globeville, Elyria, Swansea neighborhood by the I-70 construction. So it seems like an area that's going to beg for more research.
That makes sense. Wendy, the legislation surrounding oil and gas regulation and last year's legislature got a lot of attention. I don't think that's going to go away, but a lot was said that, well, let's do a lot in 2019, so in 2020, an election year, we don't have to go nearly as far. I don't know if this pumps the brakes at all. It seems to me that for some in the legislature, especially Speaker Becker, it would put a little bit more pressure on the gas pedal, no pun intended. What do you think this means for 2020?
I think that oil and gas continues to be a hot button issue around the state. And it's very much dependent on local dynamics. So, for example, in Weld County, very pro oil and gas, right? That's a very local thing. It's the most fracked county, I think, in the nation. In Adams County, on the other hand, and Broomfield and some of the other suburbs north of Denver, which are swing counties and critical swing areas in 2020, this is a kitchen table issue in which people have been force pulled. They've had their mineral rights forcibly sold because one of their neighbors wanted to sell their mineral rights. And it's something that is deeply, deeply concerning to folks up there. So I think it's going to play out differently in different places. But ultimately, I think that, Colorado's moving in the right direction. Frankly, it's insane to me that there hasn't been actual monitoring. I know up in the north end of town by me and in Commerce City, they've been asking for fence line monitoring of Suncor, of the refinery, for quite some time. And so, we absolutely should all know exactly what is coming out of these facilities.
Patty, what do we think that is going to happen as a response from the legislature, especially what we saw last year? And is there a potential of overcorrecting, which would actually give Republicans something to run on in 2020?
Well, this report exploded yesterday like an uncapped pipe up in Weld County. The people have been waiting for it for a long time, and I think they were a little surprised just by how doomsday some of the worst case scenarios were in the modeling report. Now, one of the problems is because there hasn't been the monitoring, you don't have the hard science to really go by. So you have to go by the modeling. If you read the report, it's fairly straightforward. They are going to continue looking into it. They are going to start monitoring, which is important. But we're absolutely going to feel the ramifications in the next election. This is a report that John Hickenlooper had commissioned when he was the governor. He is certainly more pro-fracking than, say, Andrew Romanoff, who is, yes, still a candidate for Senate. People pointed that out last week that his name hadn't come up. So it's going to be an issue both in the Democratic senatorial campaign, it's going to be an issue in the Republican campaigns. But I think it's also going to be a real hot button issue in the legislature as people like Casey Becker will push for even more stringent controls.